it's not uncommon anymore for people to be camping in the parks in our towns or behind stores, or you know, literally people are now being kicked out of vestibules in Goderich where they were sleeping overnight in banks, right? So this is happening in your area, and it's important that we pay attention to it. What we do know also is that when people are homeless, other things are part of the problem, right? But when you look at the stats, roughly 22% of our population faces physical disabilities. When you look at the homelessness stats that we know of, about 30% of people face. And you can see that if you're homeless, every issue is bigger, right? 33% for chronic health, 39%. Mental health challenge is 20% versus 61%. And that's, of course, a big one. So it's a very difficult thing, and often there's quite a cycle that happens, right? With one issue, it turns into another issue, it turns into another issue. And so we end up with people that are struggling with many different things. And as Aaron mentioned, it's difficult to get, you know, to any of those issues in any significant way to make a change in somebody's life or to help them, invite them to that change, if all they're worried about is whether or not they have a roof over their head. So we know that when we solve housing, we have a shot at solving the rest, right? And then we can walk alongside people through their trauma, frankly, and get them to where they need to be. So the United Way has been working for the last year or so in Goderich and identifying priorities for what we wanted to focus on right now. And homelessness was number one in that effort. So we invited all kinds of people to the table. We have committee members in the room tonight. Everybody wave who's on the United Way committee. All right, all kinds of people who helped out. And a number of others who helped us determine that this was the issue we needed to deal with most primarily right now. Social service agencies, government, they were all invited to the table, and we had lots of conversations. So we know that this is the issue we should be working on, not only because of the stats, but because the community has said it's time to do something about it more significantly. So what we can do, of course, is continue with some of the things that we've already been supporting and working with, right? There are incredibly important programs, the Women's Shelter, Safe Homes for Youth, helping with temporary emergency shelter, Out of the Cold, which gets started on November the 16th, right? And so people can use that overnight in Goderich when they are in need, which we're grateful for. But again, all those things feel like a bit of a band-aid. We have to work on the other issues. So what we're doing this year, over and above the regular United Way campaign, is we're trying to raise $65,000 and continue to raise that money each and every year going forward, because we want to hire a new person to help. One of the things that is a promising practice that has been proven in other communities is when you have a person who is available to look for housing in the community and on behalf of people who are struggling to find their own housing, we have more success, right? Landlords, we have to go talk to them and say, we need your housing unit, and we want to have a partnership with the County of Huron, who can provide a rent subsidy or who can provide other wraparound supports with our partners in the community to make sure that someone stays housed. But we have to get out there and find housing, and it's not easy in a tight market, but I can tell you Stratford's market is probably even tighter than Goderich's is, and they've had success with a similar program there. So we're wanting to do something similar here that works well. Second, we need to have someone who's available to provide that wraparound support. So imagine that you have a trauma in your life and you're struggling with mental health or whatever the case may be. If you're in your own home, if by a miracle we find a place for you to stay, sometimes you can't physically deal with the challenges that there. You know, maybe you have some kind of a challenge and you get angry and you start wrecking things in your home and all of a sudden you're getting evicted. Well, what we want to do is to make sure that we provide wraparound support, stop in, make sure the person is okay, get them connected to the services they need. Basically, have a social worker present for that person. And so we're aiming to make sure that we can do that within the private market. So we're going to get a new housing support person. You have to work at the high levels, of course. We're having conversations through the United Way of Canada and other organizations to talk about federal policy, provincial policy. We're working at that. At the local level, where's Monica? She's here. We're even talking about things that relate to the update of the official plan, for example, because there's all kinds of things around planning policy that affect housing in the community. So we're doing all those things at the same time as trying to be there for people in the emergency. And so it's critically important that when you invest in the United Way, you understand that you're investing in everything. It's not just one thing. It's this overall strategy that we're trying to get at. So homelessness, as difficult as it sounds, actually can be solved. This is an issue that is frankly within our reach. It is not out of our reach. It is something we can fix. We are going to have to rally a lot of support to get there, but we can do it. And we know that this next step of hiring a housing finder and advocate is part of the solution. So that's what we're aiming for here tonight, and trying to make sure that we can raise funds for it. So you're being invited tonight to consider making a donation. Inviting you to join a not very exclusive club, but a club nonetheless that we call Women United. And we've had events in other communities where we're talking to women who care about the community and inviting them to join. And what it means is, of course, every donation, no matter the size, we're grateful for. But we have a special opportunity tonight. If people give a gift of $1,200 or $100 a month, and I know it's a big ask, I realize that that's the case, but it's going to take a lot of money to get us out of the situation, so we need help from a lot of people. But we have generous donors in our community that are willing to match that donation tonight, if you make it. So instead of $1,200, it becomes $2,400, and that's a huge thing, right? So if you're able to help at that level, we're so grateful. Anything, of course, is wonderful, no matter what you do. But I want to introduce you to somebody else who's special that's in the room, Catherine Ritzma. Catherine is our campaign co-chair with Martin, her hubby, over here.
I want to read you a little excerpt from a family, a young couple in their 30s with 2 little kids. The dad is on our committee, and he's a wonderful guy. And last year they donated $1,200. This year, out of the blue, they donated $6,000. Martin and I are from the Stratford area. We farm. I'm a lawyer and still working full-time. Martin was in education and was a principal both in Stratford and at FE Medill, Stratford Central and Northwestern, and is retired. Martin is the eternal volunteer in Stratford area. There's not much that he doesn't do, and so this is his thing. This is what he loves to do. So one of the reasons I am volunteering as a co-chair is because Martin loves doing it. But I was on the board for 8 years, as in 2 terms. And when I was on the board about 8 years ago, I saw what the chairs were doing, and I thought, like maybe when I retire, which hasn't happened yet, like this would be a great thing to do, because you see it from all levels as opposed to being on the board and making board decisions, which are important, but it's not seeing what you can do to raise the money and help the process. And so I mentioned it to Martin. Well, that's all I have to do. And so when Martin retired last year, we became the chairs. For Perth-Huron, they tried to encourage us to do the chairing for 3 years. We committed to 1 year, and this is our second. Martin says we're already in for the 3rd year. But there is some continuity to that. And this year it's certainly been an easier thing because we know what we're sort of doing. We know what the goals are. We know the staff well. They don't have to help us as much this year as they have the other years. So we've met a lot of people. Martin knows a lot of people in agriculture. Last year, our goal was around 1,446, as in 1,446,000 for the entire 2 counties. And the year end is March 31st. About February, it was looking kind of like sorrowful. And I don't go to a lot of the committee meetings during the day, but Martin does. And when everyone was a little bit down and out and said we're not going to make goal, Martin crawled underneath the board table and said he wasn't coming out until people were more positive. And we absolutely made goal, and we're like $5,000 to $10,000 over. I mean, that's what Martin does. Martin met farmers at their egg barns. He met farmers at our kitchen table. He met contractors in their pickup trucks, and he would say, I need a $6,000 check from the people who could afford to do that. And he was brilliant at it, so that's what he does. So a lot of our major donors, we try to get $6,000, and that's because then we match it with other donations. And we ran a Women's United event in our barn. It wasn't as nice as this, but we ran a women's night with wine and cheese, etc. last year and this year. And we had about 60 women. Last year we had about 40. Our goal each of those 2 years was to try to raise around $24,000 because we had 2 programs in the Stratford area that we really wanted to focus on. One was mental health for children, and another was dealing with some women's counseling as well. Last year at the Wine and Cheese, we raised about $17,000. This year we raised $10,000 so far, but we're working on getting that to the same level as last year. And when we made the pitch, we made the same pitch that, you know, again, for us, ideally, of course, the more money you get in bigger increments, of course, you get to your goal faster. And so we asked the women to donate $1,200. We had lots of, we have really, like Huron County, we have some agricultural women who are great business leaders, and they came to our barn and were good donors. But we had people who came and gave $200, and we had people who came and gave $500. And so any donation is wonderful, and that's what we're looking for. I want to read you a little excerpt from a family, a young couple in their 30s with two little kids. The dad is on our committee, and he's a wonderful guy. And last year they donated $1,200. This year, out of the blue, they donated $6,000. I don't even think when I was in my 30s that I would have done that, thinking about hockey and daycare and all of those things. But I want to read you a little excerpt when they decided as a family. They have two little children, Oliver and Charlie, who are 4 and 6-ish. And it goes on, but I just want to read you the one line. She said, that's when I get to it. When we look at our life, we realize we are beyond fortunate. We'd like to pass that on and also make and inspire others to pay it forward and push out of their comfort zone in terms of how they can give. This is a big leap for us and a stretch that we selflessly feel we can give and carry on over joy and happiness than any holiday would give us. We have gone back and forth, the logical side of us knowing it's a stretch, and our hearts saying, do it anyway, and our hearts won. We are beyond excited to be able to help make a difference. And that's from Pip, Jason, Charlie, and Oliver. So when you look at what that young family with all sorts of finances and mortgages and things can do, it's like, it's wonderful. Like this came into United Way, it was like, wow, these are not people that are in my age bracket that, really can afford to do it, and they're doing it anyway. So I encourage you to think about that and think about where could you go over that edge. If you were thinking of doing 100, think, how many times do I go to Tim Hortons? Like, could I give $200 because I just don't go to Tim Hortons all those times throughout the next year? Like, think of something that will go beyond what you're comfortable with, because that's what this young family did, and that's how we help others. So thank you very much.